This video is sponsored by Audible. For a free audiobook, use the link in the description below. Today is October 14th, 2024, and Reactor Magazine has released chapters 21 and 22 for Wind and Truth. In this video, I'll give my thoughts on these two chapters. Chapter 21 is titled Incomplete Truths. The epigraph for this chapter is another part of the fourth parable from the in-world book, The Way of Kings. This chapter starts from Shallan's perspective. She and her team are about to go through an oath gate heading to Narak. They're using their light weavings to hide among a group of soldiers. Shallan is worried that she might be missing some larger plan that the Ghostbloods have in store for her, and I think she has good reason to worry. Once they're in Narak, we get to see a pretty cool sequence of how effective Shallan and her team are at espionage. We see them present falsified documents done with a light weaving to a sergeant, and we see them seamlessly swap between their light weaving disguises of soldiers to light weaving disguises of crim scrapers. They get near the Ghostbloods hideout and then begin leveling a patch of road so they can maintain their disguises while they stake the hideout out. Shallan makes note of who is entering and leaving the hideout, and we see that there's a guard at the door using sand from Taldane to check for people using light weavings. It will turn from black to white when it's in the presence of radiant powers or true Sprin. We learn a bit of backstory of some of the members of the Unseen Court, like Red trained as a craftsman in his youth, Darkira was a scientist who left the Ardents to join Shallan, and Array, Red Sprin, hums to alliteration rather than lies. Shallan asks her team if they're willing to go through with their plan, and they all are, though there's a bit of hesitation at first. They start phase 2. Shallan is going to have to make it into the hideout without light weavings and without pattern, because both would be revealed by the black sand. Then we get Sigzil's perspective. He's doing his best to act like Kaladin and feel confident around the monarchs and generals, but it isn't easy for him. His Sprin, Vienta, gives him a pep talk, and we see Ka, the Windrunner scribe, using a shard pin. That's so cool, I want one. We find out that Bridge 4 has new recruits from all across Roshar, so they now have a wider variety of uniform styles to choose from. Sigzil questions whether it's truly still Bridge 4 without Kaladin, Rock, Teft, and Moash? Huh. I'm surprised Sigzil included Moash in that list after all the terrible things he's done. Moash redemption arc incoming maybe? Storms, I hope not. Sigzil decides that he will start acting his part as a leader. Then we get Jasnah's perspective. She's with Dalinar, Navani, Finn, and Ivory, who's shrunken down and writing on Jasnah's earring where he can talk to her. They enter a room with all kind of plants growing from the stonework, with a fake sun shining through the ceiling. The sibling informs them that it's a room for their sister, the Night Watcher, should she visit Urithiru. Jasnah asks when the Night Watcher was created, and the sibling tells us some interesting details. The Night Watcher apparently came from the night, which is another ancient Sprin-like force similar to the wind. The Stormfather came from the wind, and the sibling came from the stones, a third Sprin-like force, about 6,000 years ago. We also learned that bondsmiths used to bond to these forces rather than to Sprin. The sibling also mentions that when they were young, the wind was different, so very different. I wonder if the sibling could potentially be the author of the Day 1 epigraphs. Both the Night Watcher and the Stormfather have changed in the time the sibling was asleep. And apparently the night left, and that's why Cultivation replaced her with the Night Watcher. Maybe the night has something to do with midnight essence throughout the Cosmere. Jasnah is able to tell that Lift is around by glancing into Shadesmar and seeing her flame that manifests there. She also notices that someone else is with Lift. Wit gives us some exposition about the shards. Each has an identity and an intent. He mentions how odium is a god's divine wrath, uncoupled from essential moderating factors like mercy and love. Now, both mercy and love are uncapitalized here, but we know that mercy is the name of a shard. Could love also be the name of a shard? There's only one shard left that we don't know the name of. Maybe love is this last unnamed shard. Let me know what you think in the comments. Dalinar tells the group that Cultivation told him to go to the spiritual realm to experience the rest of the visions, and Wit warns him that straying off course there risks getting lost in a place with no directions, no lifelines. Dalinar thinks their best chance of defeating Odium is for him to take up the Shard of Honor. Jasnah doesn't feel comfortable with that idea. Dalinar asks Wit what happens to the power of a god when they die, and Wit tells him that it's different on every world. On one world, the power was all around, and they didn't realize it. Is this one referring to Scadrial? I'm not really sure. Let me know in the comments. And on another world, the power was stuffed into the cognitive realm to rot. This one is definitely referring to Cell. Wit throws a bowl at the tablecloth where Lift is hiding. It turns out that it's the mink who's with her, and he seems to have taught her a thing or two about sneaking around, specifically how dislocating your shoulder can allow you to fit into smaller spaces. The mink convinces Dalinar to let him use 50 Windrunners to take troops to reclaim her Daz, exploiting the same loophole that Odium did. This is very honorable of Dalinar to keep his word, but it might prove to be very bad for these upcoming battles. And this chapter ends with the Stormfather being upset with Dalinar's plan of attempting to take up the Shard of Honor. Then we get to chapter 22, which is titled Looking for a Third Option. The epigraph is another part of the fourth parable from The Way of Kings, and this chapter starts from Kaladin's perspective. He's walking through a forest, amazed by the strange plants all around that seem frozen in time, unmoving. He also notices that despite plants all around him, there are no life spren bobbing around. He finds it both bizarre and wonderful. We see that Syl is loving Shinovar and is acting a lot more like her old self, more spren-like. We see that when she shrinks down to her ribbon form now to zip around, she shimmers with a variety of colors rather than just being blue. We learn that people in Shinovar rarely use spheres for light, instead relying on candles, and Kaladin finds this extremely dangerous and wonders how Shinovar hasn't burned itself down. Kaladin attempts to be a good therapist and starts up a conversation with Szeth. He tries to get Szeth to open up about his struggles, but Szeth proves to be a difficult person to get talking about his feelings. He basically just says that he does whatever his master commands, and that's it. He feels that he deserves to bear these mental scars that he has for killing so many people. Szeth tells Kaladin that there's an unmade in Shinovar, and it's his mission to cleanse Shinovar of that. He says that he met this unmade before his exile. It began during his youth with a rock? Could this be related to the rock that showed up in Kaladin's rucksack in earlier chapters? Potentially the same rock that Tien handed Kaladin in his youth? Are all of these rocks connected in some way? Or maybe it has to do with that stone's force that we learned about last chapter. Interesting. Then we get to Dalinar's perspective. The others have left the room so he can speak with the Stormfather privately. The Stormfather is very upset at Dalinar for even considering to try taking up Honor's power. He pulls Dalinar into a vision where Dalinar is floating in a blue vastness with the Stormfather's face in swirling clouds stretching from horizon to horizon. We also seem to get confirmation that the Stormfather we saw with Gavilar in the prologue was indeed the real Stormfather. The Stormfather tells Dalinar that the power cannot go to one who wants it. So maybe Kaladin really will be the one to ascend. If Dalinar won't be able to take the power, Kaladin seems like the next best choice for it. Or, the more likely case, Brandon will throw us a curveball, and someone none of us have even considered will take it. There's so many possibilities. Dalinar gets angry back at the Stormfather for being so vague all the time. And as he's talking, he notices he's growing larger and his own voice is being punctuated by rumblings of thunder. He eventually grows so large that he can look the Stormfather straight in the eyes. The Stormfather is persuaded and thinks that Dalinar should seek out the spiritual realm. He says that he will see their shame there. This is going to be a wild ride. The vision ends and Wit is now in the room with Dalinar. He was able to hear the conversation. He tells Dalinar that they should send him to the spiritual realm the smart way, meaning sending only his mind. He also has Dalinar connect his fabrial clock to Wit's watch from Silverlight, so that Dalinar can keep track of time in the spiritual realm so he doesn't accidentally let months or even decades slip by while he's in there. And this chapter ends right before they test to make sure that the bonded watches will work. I have a feeling that the two watches will become unbonded while Dalinar is in the spiritual realm. him. Maybe not during their test, but eventually while he's in there. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Those were my thoughts on these 2 chapters. I'd love to hear your thoughts about them down in the comment section. If you haven't already pre-ordered Wind and Truth, you have the perfect opportunity to get it for free as an audiobook right now, thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Audible. All you have to do is click the link in the description and sign up for an Audible Premium Plus 30-day free trial. Audible will give you a credit, and you can use this credit to get any book of your choice. That could be pre-ordering Wind and Truth, getting another Cosmere book, or getting a completely different book unrelated to the Cosmere. Any book you want. Being a member on Audible also gives you access to thousands of other audiobooks and podcasts in the Audible Plus catalog. Listening to books on Audible is a very immersive experience, and it also lets you multitask, so you can do things like drive and wash dishes or do laundry while you're listening to your favorite books. So once again, use the link in the description below and get your free audiobook today. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.